Hi, I'm Christina and this is my first book haul of 2024 and it's most likely going to be my last book haul of 2024 too. So I have put myself on a book buying ban for the whole year. We're currently 5 months into the year and I haven't bought a single book, so I'm really pleased with that. These are all the books that I got for Christmas and for my birthday. So I'm just going to get straight into them. I have 12 books here to talk about. So the first of which is This Is How You Lose the Time War. Now this one was really popular on booktube and I really like the sound of it. So I love science fiction books and I love books about time and time travel. I know this one is about two rival agents who fall in love, so this is a love story. And basically, because they're on two warring factions, if it was found out that they were in love, it would be awful for both of them. And obviously, because it is a war, one side is obviously going to win. So I really like the sound of this one. I've seen this in so many bookshops and every single time the title has drawn me in. I love the title of this book, This Is How You Lose the Time War. And I also love the cover with these beautiful birds. Every time I saw this book, I wanted to buy it. So really happy to get this one as a gift and really looking forward to reading it. I also think it sounds quite unlike anything I've ever read before in terms of time travel stories. I've read one that was kind of had a love story in it, which is Recursion by Blake Crouch, and that's one of my favourite science fiction books of all time. So kind of similar kind of vibes possibly, but I know I really enjoyed that one and I'm really looking forward to reading this one. So the second book I have to talk about is another science fiction novel, and that is The Wall. So this one was originally published in Germany and it was been translated from the German. Now I bought this one on the recommendation of Emily over at Books with Emily Fox. She has brilliant science fiction book recommendations, and this one is meant to be about a woman who is the last surviving human on Earth. She's just a normal middle-aged woman and then one day she wakes up to find that everyone else has vanished. And I think that one sounds really good. I'm really looking forward to reading that one. So the next book I have to talk about is a collection of short stories, and that is Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. Now the reason I bought this one is because I read Our Wives Under the Sea by her last year and I absolutely love that book. It was one of my favourite books of 2023, so I was very much looking forward to reading some of the other things that she's written, and this is the only other thing that she has published at the moment, and this was her debut, and it's a collection of short stories about women and their experiences. So I'm really looking forward to giving this one a go. She's really good at writing very unusual and unique stories, if Our Wives Under the Sea is anything to go by. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to giving this one a read, and I love the way that she writes. She is such a beautiful writer, and Our Wives Under the Sea is one of the most beautiful books I've read in a very long time. So yeah, really looking forward to giving this one a go. So the next book that I have to talk about is a literary fiction novel, and that is Fresh Water for Flowers. Now this one is about a woman who works as a caretaker at a cemetery in a small town in France, and we meet the people that she works alongside, such as the vicar and the groundskeepers and the gravediggers, and we also meet the people who are coming to the cemetery to visit their loved ones. So this one is a #1 bestseller in France, and it's meant to be full of warmth and generosity and poetry, and it just sounds really lovely. It sounds like a really moving and emotional read, and I'm really looking forward to reading this one. And it's also been blurbed by Matt Haig, who is one of my favourite authors. I absolutely love The Midnight Library by him. It's my favourite book by him. And he said that it was a bittersweet dream of a book, which is such a lovely way to describe a book. And I'm really looking forward to giving this one a read. So next up, I have 2 books by the same author. I have Severance and I also have Bliss Montage. So Severance was really popular on booktube around the time of the pandemic because this one is a post-apocalyptic fiction book about a pandemic, and we follow a woman who is a millennial and she's working in an office in Manhattan, and her life's meant to be so full of routine that even when this plague sweeps New York, she barely notices at all. And then she turns into this anonymous blogger who photographs the streets of New York. And I'm really looking forward to reading this one. Post-apocalyptic fiction is one of my favourite genres, and I know this one had a lot of buzz on BookTube for a while, around the time of the pandemic. And yeah, really looking forward to reading this one. I have read quite a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction books by now, and I really like the genre, so really much looking forward to reading this one. So the second book I have is also by Ling Ma, and that is Bliss Montage. So this is her second book, and this is a collection of short stories. It says it brings us 8 wildly different tales, and they're about motherhood, the idea of home, about love and loneliness and friendship, connection and possession. So I'm really looking forward to giving this one a read. Normally, I don't own 2 books by the same author if I've never read from that author before, but I really was interested in reading both of these. And when people were asking what I would like for my Christmas and birthday, I wrote them both down, and now I have both of them, which I'm really pleased with. And yeah, the front cover is just so beautiful with those oranges. I'm really looking forward to giving this one a go. I think I will probably read Severance before this one, just because that was her debut and this is her second novel, and I think I would like to read them in publication order. So yeah, really looking forward to giving this one a read too. So the next book that I have to talk about is another science fiction novel, and this one also plays with time. This is Replay by Ken Grimwood. So I also bought this one on the recommendation of Emily over at Books with Emily Fox. And this one is an older science fiction novel. So this was originally published in 1987. And we follow a man who is 43 years old, and he's in a bit of a dead-end job. He isn't in a happy marriage, and he's kind of just waiting to die. But then when he does die, he is awakened again as an 18-year-old, and all of his memories of the last 25 years are intact. So this time he lives his life trying to avoid the mistakes that he made last time, trying to find happiness and using his knowledge of the future to make money. But then he dies again and he wakes up again as an 18-year-old. So I thought this one sounds really interesting. It reminds me a little bit of The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, which I really enjoyed, which was obviously about a man who lived multiple lives, which sounds very similar to this one. And I really love that trope. I love it when books and movies and other things play with time and kind of time travel and the idea of immortality and reliving multiple lives. I really like that kind of subgenre. It's something I find really interesting, and I normally really enjoy books with that kind of trope in them. So yeah, really looking forward to giving this one a read. So the next book that I have to talk about is another science fiction novel, and that is The Memory Police. So this one is another older science fiction novel. So it was originally published in 1994 in Japanese, and then it was translated into English, and it was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize in 2020. Now this book has also had a lot of buzz on BookTube, and I love this kind of genre. So in this one, it's set on an unnamed island off an unnamed coast, and objects start disappearing. So at first it's hats, ribbons, birds, and then roses. And the majority of people living on the island aren't aware when things start disappearing, but for some people, they are aware when things disappear, and they live in constant fear of the memory police. And it sounds really intriguing. Like I say, I love science fiction novels. I love these types of genres, and it sounds really good. And I know it had a lot of buzz, and I really do enjoy reading books from the International Booker Prize. I've read some really good ones. So yeah, looking forward to giving this one a read. So the next book I have to talk about is a literary fiction novel / mystery novel, and that is Elena Knows. So this one was also on the International Booker Prize. It was originally published in Spanish in 2007, and then it was translated into English, and it was on the 2022 International Booker Prize. So this one is set in Argentina, and the author is from Argentina, and we find a woman who is dead in the bell tower of a church, and the investigation is quickly closed by official sources, and the only person who's trying to find out the truth is her mother, who is quite unwell. So I'm really looking forward to giving this one a read. I bought this one on the recommendation of Jack over at Jack Edwards. I know he really enjoyed this book, and I was also already intrigued to read it because it was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed this book. I've seen it have a little bit of buzz on BookTube, so yeah, really looking forward to giving this one a read too. So the next 3 books that I have to talk about, I have already read. So I do have book review videos dedicated to all of these books. So I will link those down below just in case you'd like to hear my detailed thoughts on them. But I thought I would just quickly introduce them into the book haul too, as I did acquire all these books at the same time. So the first of which is Moon of the Crusted Snow. So I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. This is another science fiction, post-apocalyptic fiction book. There's definitely a theme running through this haul, and this one is written by an Indigenous Canadian author, and it's set in an Indigenous community in Canada. And basically something happens and the TV stopped working, the mobile phones stopped working, the landlines, and they're completely cut off from the rest of the world, and they don't know what's happened, and going out to find out obviously could be quite dangerous. And we just follow the people in this community throughout this experience, and we follow one family in particular. He's our main character. He has a wife, he has 2 children, and we see him trying to survive through this ordeal. And I really enjoyed this one. I think it was a really solid piece of like post-apocalyptic fiction, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was really eerie. That's the thing I think he really nailed in this. He got that kind of undercurrent of tension and that kind of eerie feel to it, and he really kind of nailed that vibe throughout the whole story. Made you feel quite uncomfortable with everything that was going on for them. Yeah, I really liked it, and I would recommend this one. The next book that I have to talk about is another science fiction novel, another post-apocalyptic fiction novel, and that is How High We Go in the Dark. Now, I absolutely love this book. I've given it 5 stars, and it's genuinely one of the best science fiction books I've ever read in my entire life, and it's definitely one of my favourite books that I've read in 2024. So this one reads most like a short story collection, and we follow several different characters. And the story spans centuries, millennia, and it spans lots of different parts of the world too. And all of these characters become interconnected later on. And the stories are really brilliant and really unique and interesting and kind of unusual. So in the very beginning of the story, we're following a man who is grieving for his daughter. His daughter was a scientist, and she was working trying to see how the permafrost was melting, and they find a body of a girl who is 30,000 years old, and then he goes to this place because he is also a scientist and he wants to try to continue the research of his daughter. So he goes out there, meets all the people that she was working with, and sees the body of this girl that they've uncovered. And then unfortunately inside this girl is a virus, and then this virus is released into our oceans because the permafrost is melting, and then the virus enters the water supply and spreads across the entire globe. And then we see how this virus affects and shapes different communities and different people throughout quite a large period of time. And it was a really brilliant story. I was so emotionally connected to these characters. It was really hard hitting. It was very moving, and it was really beautifully written. He had such an imaginative way of writing this story that it went to places that I never even imagined. So as I was reading this story, I thought I was reading a book about certain things, and then he went to so many different places that I wasn't imagining. And I think it was a brilliant story. I absolutely love it, and the way that he writes is beautiful, and such an interesting book, and it covers so much ground in terms of science fiction. It covers loads and loads of ground. It's really excellent. I would highly recommend you read this one. So the last book that I have to talk about is another science fiction novel. No surprises there. This entire haul has been very science fiction heavy, and I have just been really enjoying reading science fiction. So this one is Mickey 7. So this is a science fiction book that is set in space, so slightly different from the rest. The others were quite post-apocalyptic fiction heavy. This one is about a man called Mickey 7, and he is an expendable, which means that he's the only person on the mission who can die and then be brought back to life. So when he's brought back to life, the majority of his memories are still intact, and he is the next iteration of Mickey. So they're on a mission to colonize a planet which is covered in ice, and we just kind of watch them as they try to settle on this planet and just see what happens when they try to settle there. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. So these are the 12 books that I have new for 2024. If you have read any of these, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you've read any of them, definitely let me know which ones you think I should read first. In terms of the ones I'm prioritising, I genuinely don't know which books I'm going to pick up next. So if you have read one of these and you absolutely loved it and you think I should prioritise it, please let me know down in the comments. Or if you've read multiple of them and you think there's a few I should prioritise, definitely let me know. So thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you've liked it, and please do subscribe if you'd like to hear more of me talking about books. I'll see you in my next one.